All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to week number 66. Let's talk about some math anxiety. My name is Mr. McLogan, and each and every Sunday night at 9 p.m., I go live to go ahead and talk to you about some kind of topic that I want to always go through, and then also go and answer your questions. And these are the questions I have to this evening. Happy Easter for all of you that are celebrating Easter. And I've been going live for 66 weeks. So typically, even though I celebrate Easter and we were getting together as a family, one thing that's been really big for me is to continue this streak for week 66. So I'm very happy to be here with you guys tonight. Talk to you a little bit about math anxiety because I know something is very important that is coming around the corner for many of you, which is testing season. And I know once testing season comes up, the anxiety just rises. And it was really something that I, really kind of came into me. I was having some trouble coming up with thinking about, what I wanted to talk about. Obviously I know, and I will be talking about, exams and stuff like that. But I also talked about that in the first semester, right? And, kind of recent, just not too long ago. And if you're interested about some exam tips and how to take exams, I definitely have those in previous live streams where I, talked about them and going on the videos. But the math anxiety is something that kind of came out to me because it's actually something that I recently just encountered. So I wanted to kind of start this off by giving you guys a tip. And if you were on my email list, you got this, I talked about this a little bit in my story, but one thing I wanted to go up on is this idea of a lot of people, actually, never mind. I didn't get through this. But either way, one of the parts that I wanted to, actually, I didn't talk about this. I was going to, and then I changed it. But so one of the things one thing came to me is this weekend I had some severe anxiety. I could not fall asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just freaking out. It's just my mind was racing a mile a minute and I didn't know, what to do. And it was kind of funny because, it's not something that I encounter a lot because it was dealing with real estate transactions. So for many of you know, I also am a licensed real estate and I've been selling real estate for years, as well as being a teacher, as well as being YouTube. I've actually done all three for over 10 years now. And it was just kind of one of this recent transaction that we had some things going on. And, a lot of anxiety comes up for me when I can't control things. And so we're dealing with, kind of situation in the transaction. And I just, I wasn't in control, didn't know how things were going to end. And, just a lot of scenarios just started going through my brain. It was making me very anxious and very stressful. And it was just very difficult for me to kind of process all this stuff. But one of the things that, I kind of reminded myself of is you got to know what you're doing. You got to be confident in what you're doing and move forward, and put things in perspective, be grateful, for what you have and where you are in this, what you've already accomplished and kind of move from there. And I thought to myself, I'm what, that's such a great, and anyways, so we got through the transaction, everything worked out. I had a good night's rest last night, but it was one of those hard things that I had to go through. And I'm what, this is the exact same anxiety that I remember when I used to take math exams. And I'm I know not everybody, I know a lot of people can relate to me. They have this anxiety the night before the test or as tests are coming up that they just know, immediately thinking about math or math exam brings up anxiety. And if that's you, then let me know in the comments because I want to kind of gauge this audience a little bit if you guys are in with me, because I remember just sometimes thinking about taking a math exam, people are that just makes me stressed out, right? I definitely can see a lot of you, Daniel and Charles, Glenn, Amarita, good to have you guys on. Dude Gamer, Charles, that's awesome to see. What did he say? How to deal with math anxiety. He seems legit. Yeah. So because this, with the math anxiety, I think it's, one of those things that have kind of been embedded in a lot of our society and cultures that, oh, you're not good at math. It's acceptable. Hey, math, you're not a math person. It's okay to fail, right? It's almost the funniest thing is, when people fail a math test, it's it's okay. That's acceptable. Oh, yeah, that math exam was really hard. It's cool to not be good at math, right? That's kind of this push that we've hated, to kind of put ourselves or kind of promoted, which I absolutely abhor, but I'm not going to talk about it in this live stream. But I think one of those things that we've tried to like make that acceptable, and I'm not sure if that has kind of been acceptable to like reduce people's anxiety or whatever else, but like people's grades are at stake. People's like, money is at stake, depending on how you do it on exams. And like if you can understand math or not and like go to your next class, and like it's a lot to take on. And so I wanted to kind of give you guys obviously some tips that I feel that I think you guys that can help you out when you're coming to think about this, getting that anxiety for those math tips. And I see definitely a lot of you are coming through saying that you can relate to having the math anxiety. So one of the, oh man, there's another one that's coming up and I missed it. I'll go right around. So one of the things that I think is definitely what worked for me last night or this weekend when I was getting that anxious was like, I was going to write this down, but just to go ahead and stop and take a break, take a walk. So on Saturday this weekend, I was like just feeling super anxious. I was like, man, I got to like collect my thoughts and everything else. And I think sometimes when you like get a lot of your brain starts going through those things, like just stop what you're doing, like get yourself out of the whatever environment you're in and just and again, this is just from my personal advice and experience. So I don't have any, ability to, give any like technical advice, but this is just what has kind of worked for me. And so, but I think just like I took a couple of walks just by myself and just was like taking some big breaths and just to kind of like relax myself and just to really kind of try to think myself clearly and kind of step away from the situation. I'm going to sneeze on a live stream. No, I'm not, because I'm going to put my tongue on the top of my mouth and it worked. Cool. If you've never tried that, try it. I never thought like you stopping to sneeze can work. And I remember somebody saying like, oh yeah, put your tongue on the top of your mouth. And I'm like, that's so crazy. That's never going to work. It works. I've never tried it and it's not worked. I'm not saying it works all the time. I've just never had it when I tried it. It didn't work. I feel still kind of like I have to sneeze, but I keep on putting my tongue on the top of my mouth and I don't know. It's working so far. Okay. So, all right. So let's actually kind of break this up. So we got to stop, right? Stop and then just go and breathe. Breathe, take a walk, whatever you need to get yourself out of your current situation. When your brain, I think sometimes kind of gets in that little motion where you're freaking out, you got to change. You got to like reroute, like you got to go in a different direction. Step number 2, I think is really important that you like after you kind of settle down is just take a moment of gratitude, not crude. I was going to say grateful, gratitude or reflect, right? And just be happy for what you've accomplished up to this point. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit, especially when they struggle with math, of like actually how much math they've learned, right? And I don't accept the argument that you're not good at math. I do completely accept the argument that math is very stressful and brings on anxiety. Like I totally accept that. But I don't feel like people are just bad at math tests or anything like that. And I can definitely go into more detail on that because I don't want to give you a blanket answer, but there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think there's one thing is you got to be grateful for like a lot of people understand a lot of math. And I understand that understanding or that what they are able to do doesn't always translate on a test, right? And that's actually with me. I would make a ton of little mistakes and usually do poorly on tests when I would actually understand the material. So I think it's really important to just be like grateful, like think about like what it is you are grateful for your situation, where you're at, what you've accomplished up to this point, and really just kind of put things into perspective, reflect on what you've come up from there. And I think when you kind of put things into perspective, it really kind of makes all these anxious thoughts that are coming up to you, like you're freaking out about this. It just kind of puts things in perspective and then calms them down. Okay. And then step number 3 is action. And this is one thing, I can't remember the quote. It's a great quote, but I think it's just one of these things. This is like where you think about anxiety, like math anxiety. You're freaking out for your test, right? So it's like, all right, let's just go through a situation. You have a crazy math test coming up and you're freaking out. Like you're like, oh my God, I can't get this bad grade. I'm not going to get the next college, or I'm not going to get the next class. I'm going to lose my scholarship. All of these things going on. I don't understand the material. I don't know how to do anything. like arrow these thoughts in. It's like, all right, let's just stop. Let's go and take a walk and let's just kind of breathe, right? And let's just kind of, calm ourselves down. The next thing is like, hey, let's just think about like all we've accomplished, like all the times that we've gotten help and that we've understood stuff and, that like where we are, with ourselves, or compare ourselves to all the materials and everything that we have access to, and, be very happy, like, for your ability to be able to prove yourself and what you've already proved, for yourself and what you already know in other classes and, and everything else that you've done up to this point. And really just kind of think of like, the same thing, like, and also I didn't talk about like the perspective, but like, yeah, getting a B, a C is not the end of the world, right? And even let's say you lose your scholarship or you don't go to your college, like you can still do whatever you want to be, or you can be whoever you still want to be. Like a grade is not going to define who you are and what you are capable of, right? So put things into perspective. Even though some of those things might have some consequences and some severe consequences, but again, it's not going to be something that's going to dictate your life. You can always overcome that. And then number 3 is going to be action. Like you got to get moving, because I think sometimes we think about this anxiety and it just eats us away. Like we don't know what to do. And so I'll tell you like the action for my case. And this is how I went back to bed, right? So I'm waking up in the middle of the night. I'm freaking out over this real estate transaction. And I'm like, I got a lot going on. So I tried to like calm myself, just breathe, right? And I kind of went through the grateful and like reflect on the process. And I said, all right, I can't do action right now, but when I wake up, I'm going to get into action. And that's going to help me kind of get through this. And so sure enough, like Saturday came around and then I just got into my emails and my phone calls, and I was just emailing, phone calling, the agents I need to, and getting things done. And I think that's very important for you. Like same thing for the studying, like, hey, like, you're anxious for this test, is like, you got to study, like you got to put in the work, that you need to for the test. Like start preparing, start calling your friends, get study group or whatever you need to get, like start reviewing your old test, going over your answers, signing up for like a tutoring system or like whatever you need to do, like make a step forward. Just don't let that anxiety eat away at you. And then therefore, sorry, I had to put my tongue at the top of my mouth. Therefore, not allow you to take the action that you need to. So hopefully that was very helpful for you guys. It was something that kind of came up to me, today through my own experience. And I was like, man, I remember these exact same feelings when I was in high school, when I was in college, having that anxiety. And I know a lot of my students go through it as well. And so hopefully I can pass it along to you guys so you guys kind of know how to deal with it. Because the important thing about anxiety, if you just have it with math or if it's anything else, it's not something like we can avoid, right? I mean, it's gonna be there. So the important thing is really figuring out how we're gonna be able to work with it and work through it, because we just can't avoid it and just hope that like it's never going to be there, because it is going to be there. So either way, if you thought that was helpful advice, or maybe you've done some of those things, let me know down in the chat while I say hello to William and GSVVR and Glaze and Addie. How are you? Good to have you on. We got Christian. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in. That guy, what if you're panicking in a test? How do you just walk up and walk away from the test? All right, so anxiety during the test, that's a little bit different. So, yeah, I appreciate that. That that probably wouldn't work for you. But I wouldn't say, I would definitely say like close your eyes, doing some breathing, right? Maybe like rub your ears. I know there's like the pressure points. You can look at it. In your ears, and just kind of rub them and just like relax. But I think the same thing is like, notice the first thing I wrote is like, stop. Just like stop what you're doing. Take a deep breath, like breathe, listen to your breathing, right? Yes, you can't take a walk. Obviously sometimes you take a walk, like get a walk of water. Like I tell my students all the time, like you're having difficulty. I'm like, go outside, get a drink of water, come back in. And it's definitely something fine to do from there. All right. It is so hard. Thank you for my math. I get so stressed with that. And Coastalic, I totally get it. Yeah, I know what people have. I remember being super stressed with my homework every single night. You just kind of feel like it's this, it's just this constant kind of stress. And it doesn't have to be for math too. I mean, I know a lot of you obviously are on here because of math, but math might be a subject you're good in, but maybe you can definitely relate to English, which was like for me, or math too, because I struggled with math. I guess I struggle with everything, but no, like English, like I struggle with math. I had anxiety for math for sure, but for like English, I would get stressed out on like papers when I had these papers, because it would take me for so long to write a paper, just because I don't know how my brain just works. I'd have to like write it like 3 or 4 times, and I would just always make, mistakes. And I hated writing like long papers, stuff like that. What happened to my face on my bicycle? It's kind of cleaning up a little bit. I forgot to put on some suntan lotion. I live in Florida, so it's kind of like gotten warm, and it's kind of already gotten a little burned out. So hopefully that will kind of fade a little bit as we kind of get into that, as we get into maybe next school year. Hopefully, we'll see. Mrs. says, thank you for your videos. It was really helpful with virtual schooling with my 9th grade. Oh, well, you're very welcome for that. Yeah, I think it's got to be tougher virtual schooling. But guess what, guys? We are almost done with the year, for at least many of you. I'm not sure if you guys have like summer school or what's going to be going on. At least in my school district, we've been in person since October. So we're not having any kind of extension, but I know there's been a lot of people that are like just got back into schooling or just got back in person. And I know I've heard some things of like going into summer school and everything like that. And yeah, we'll look into some of those things coming up, or at least I'll look into how that's going to impact or my thoughts as those kind of unveiled. There's skin problems and headaches. Yes, Maka, I can definitely relate. Oh, well, thank you, William. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just try to like stay out of the sun as much as possible. SAT math, easy for me. I'm not sure. Ooh, I'm going to do pre-calculus. Well, awesome, Christian. Keep it up. And I'll definitely have a lot of videos and everything else for you. Is math SAT easy for me? I don't know. I don't really spend a lot of time with the SAT and ACT stuff. Just because I think that definitely serves a purpose, and I like a lot of it, but I also don't like some of it as well. So I've just never really spent a lot of time with like SAT prep and stuff like that. I do have some videos on it, and I do plan on like expanding that side of it, because I think it is one of those like necessary things that people are going to need and want. But yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at that material. Owen says, I have a lot of anxiety, things coming in, but I'm very good, but I just don't have confidence in my answers. Yeah, I can relate very much with you as well. Optimization. You know what? When I taught calculus, I don't think we had to cover optimization, or at least we did. I mean, we covered it, but it wasn't like very in depth on there, because obviously you're dealing with a lot of like word problems, I'm sure, with the optimization. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to come down to breaking down the problem that you need. But I don't actually believe I covered any problems on optimization. I might have, but maybe only a couple. So that would have been it for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started on some questions. So these are all questions. If you guys look on there. Oh, wait, did I not? I'm an idiot. You'd be kidding me. Well, of course I'm an idiot. But I meant to diss this, so I got to replace my pinned message. Why don't I do? There we go. All right. So, some students were asking me at the beginning of the live stream, like, hey, how do we answer our questions? I'm like, oh, I'll pin the comment, and I pinned the wrong comment. So, all the questions I'm going to be covering for you guys tonight are from I've all been submitted on my Google form. So if you want to go ahead and check out my my website, or if you want to go and check out that link, you can go ahead and submit. I don't really use that as my website. And my other website is having some issues. So for right now, we're just working on some individual pages. So the first individual page is that Q&A, brianmclogan.com/Q&A. And that's where you guys can go ahead and submit some questions that you guys have for each and every week, because each and every Sunday I go live and I answer your questions. I am not able to get to everybody's questions, but I do always want to kind of get to some questions that answer you guys that do submit them, because I do really appreciate you guys submitting your questions and joining in each and every week. On top of me answering your questions, you can also see if you can also see on the question format, guys, I do always do a link or I do a timestamp for the replays. So if you do have to leave or you want to come back, watch a later video, see if I answered your question, you can always go and check the timestamps of that video once it has been published, usually within like 2 or 3 days. And that's about it. Now, if I do not get your question, which is, very probable, I think I got like to half of the questions submitted here. I also have a Discord community that you guys can go ahead and join in, and therefore you guys can answer questions, help other people with their questions. It's a really great community, where people are just sharing their math help and getting help and helping each other out. So, go ahead and check out the Discord link if you are wanting some answers that are a little bit, sooner, or you just feel like also helping out some people that maybe are in some lower maths than you, and that is always greatly appreciated. The group is growing each and every day, and I look forward to helping like you. I look forward to that group growing, so therefore more and more people can get help. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I messed up my thing. There you go. All right. Ooh, good work. AB Calc BC. You got this, Jake. You got it. All right, let's go ahead and get done. So, and then guys, if I do have any other questions after this, I will try to keep the stream a little bit shorter just because I got to go back to school again tomorrow night. And yeah. Got to school tomorrow night. So, and I only have a couple of more questions, but I might be able to get to a couple of your guys' questions. We'll see. All right. So the first question, the student was asking for how to find the limit. And I believe this is of f of x. I guess they like cross this out. So I was like, I'm not sure what you're going for here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, they like erased it. So that's not answer. Doesn't even make any sense. That's the graph of f of x. What is the limit of... All right, I'm not sure. They like erased. Now I can see what they were doing. They asked me what to do, but they erased it. So it doesn't really make any sense. So I'll answer this the way that I was assuming this question was being asked. So it says, for questions 11 through 15, refer to the graph below and write the letter of the correct answer on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, but it looks like whoever submitted this question like covered up something on their test. I'm not sure why they did that and then submitted it to me. The next thing they're asking is what is the limit as x approaches 3 from the right? Okay, so the limit is we're looking for the value of the function as it is approaching 3 as the x value is approaching 3, and this little plus says from the right. Now, the interesting thing is we don't know where 3 is, right? 3 is over here, like where's that on the graph? So the way that I was looking to understand this equation was saying, well, can we kind of maybe get an estimate of what this equation would be? And if I look up here, you see 1 over 1, and then you can say like 2, 4, right? It looks like those kind of 2 points and -1 and -2, 4, like looks like those points make up the graph. Well, based on those notes, I can conclude like this would be a good example of y equals x squared. So therefore, if I was basically doing this as a limit as x approaches 3 to the right of x squared, which is like my function here, then say like, where's that going to go? Well, if you like continue graphing this, you can see like that's going to be approaching what? 9, right? And so when we have this like plus sign, basically what we're looking for the limit is like, where is the graph approaching? Where is the x value approaching from the right? So as we're moving like from the right, basically, right? From this right-hand side, as we're getting closer and closer to this, you can see this y value or the value of the function here is going to equal 9. So that would equal 9, but that was not an answer choice. For there's something else this student did not let me know about. And unfortunately, I don't know. So if you needed to find the limit here for this, you can see that's also just a direct substitution in this case, because this is a continuous function. So when you do have a continuous function, what you can do is just apply your direct substitution, right? So we could say this is 3 squared, which is equal to 9, which again, it doesn't matter if it's a right hand or left hand or the general limit in this case. But when we are looking at something that's not a continuous function, then we will want to kind of have a little bit better understanding using some algebraic manipulation or looking at the graph to kind of better understand the limit. All right. All right, Eddie, best of luck on your online class. You got this. So question number 2, I erased, it says describe fully the single transformation that maps P onto Q. All right, so there's a couple things we could do. We could do a slide, right? And that's going to be a rigid transformation where you're basically taking this figure and you're just going to shift it up, all right? That doesn't look like that's going to work. We could do so we have the slide. We have the rotate, right? And you could rotate counterclockwise or clockwise. And you're always going to want to do that about a point, right? So you could have like a point here, you could do the origin, or you could do like a point here. But again, like this rotation, even no matter how you would rotate, these are never going to look like each other, right? Their orientation of these is just not going to be the same. So it's not going to be a rotation. And then another one we could do is like a flip, right? So a flip could be something like that. Now, again, in this one, you can kind of see like the flip is kind of like this mirrored image, right? Or also we call this a reflection, right? So this is going to be the idea of kind of like looking at this like mirrored image of this graph. So if you kind of did a dashed line here, what you can see is each of these points is, you can see they're like two units away. And if we were to take this and flip it about the line x equals 1, you could say P would go to Q. And you're going to have to do a little visual like manipulation to understand, to see this. But if you take that and you flip it back over, you can see it would actually take on the same shape, right? And then the only other one we have left is dilation, which is going to be that stretch and compress, which is not going to work here. So this is going to be a flip, or I'm sorry, let's use mathematical. We can say a reflection about x equals 1. And there you go. All right, Miguel, send you 2 questions, and usually I don't go with 2 questions, but these were fairly basic enough, and they were a little different, and they weren't like multiple word problems, and one was exponential, one was logarithmic, so I was like, all right, I'll work through both, and we're a little low on our questions tonight, so cool. All right, so first question, we have e to the 2x equals 1.4. Round your answers to nearest decimal places. Okay. So we got to get the x off the power, right? It's up in the power. We got to get it off. So there's a couple rules that we can use to understand this. So if we have e to the ln of x, that just equals x. Just like if we had the ln of e to the x, that equals x. Okay, so these are 2 rules that you're going to want to use. And again, you can prove these, show these, whatever else that you want to, like to understand these, but this is what these 2 rules are very important. You can do them for logs and as well as for natural logs, but you're going to want to kind of understand, make sure you understand those and remember those. So the reason why that's important is if I want to get rid of my 2x, I want to get rid of this e to the x, right? Well, if you recognize, if you take the ln of e to the x, well, then you're just going to be left with like, if you take the ln of e, you're just going to be left with what the power is. So what I can do here is I can take the ln of both sides. Okay, so now you can see, oh, now it's just going to be a 2x equals the ln of 1.4 divided by 2 divided by 2. So x equals the ln of 1.4 divided by 2. So now you can just take your calculator, say ln of 1.4, and then divide that by 2. When you do that, you get 0.168. Voila. Question number 4, same kind of thing. Let's go back to these 2 rules, right? So I have ln of 2x minus 3 equals 5. Now, I like you to remember to isolate the logarithm first, and that is correct. So the first thing you're going to want to do is isolate the logarithm. So now we have the ln of 2x is equal to 8. Okay, but now we want to go back to these rules again. Like if I can have e as my base of ln of x, I can get rid of that ln, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise them both with e as the base. So therefore, that's going to leave me with a 2x equals e to the 8. Then you can divide by 2. So x equals e to the 8 divided by 2. And done. So now, again, you're going to have to use your calculator here. So e raised to the 8 divided by 2. And by doing that, I get 1490.478. Voila. The bright side, why do I never get notifications? I think you got to ring the bell, bright side. I don't know. Unless maybe you do ring the bell and then you're not getting it. Maybe then just YouTube is hating on me. I'm not sure. All right, let's go and work on the next one, which is prove the identity. So in this one, we need to prove the identity. We have the double angle formula for sine and the double angle formula for cosine. Very, very cool. All right, so what we're going to do in this case is first let's go and apply the double angle formula for the sine and the cosine. And I kind of ran out of room here. So this is the sine of 2x. I didn't remember them. It's been a while since I taught this. Not a really long time, but long enough where I was like, ah, crap. I'm not sure if I remember these correctly. So I had to look them up. Okay, so there's our double angle formulas. So the first thing I'm going to do is I applied the double angle formulas to these. Or I didn't solve it all the way. So hopefully the way that I understood it or the math in my head worked is going to work now. So I apply those, right? And then this one is, so minus a 2 cosine squared of x minus 1. Now there's a lot of them for cosine of x that you could have chosen, right? And then this is going to equal secant of x. But the reason why I chose this one is I didn't really know. Actually, I really just kind of picked it. I think the one thing I saw is the next step that we're going to want to do in this case is you're going to want to combine them, right? So you're going to want to get common denominators. So once I knew that I needed to get common denominators, I figured, well, I'm like, all right, so the LCD here is going to be, so the LCD in this case is going to be a sine of x times cosine of x, right? Okay, so the LCD is going to be sine of x times cosine of x. And the reason why I think that's important is because I'm going to multiply this by cosine of x. Well, what that's going to do is that's going to give me a cosine squared. And I already have a cosine squared over here. And that just seemed to me like, oh, that's going to be kind of helpful as well as important. So let's see if that was, and if I did my math correctly, which makes sense. So now you go ahead and distribute this, right? Got to make sure you multiply that times both of them as well. All right. And then, I'm sorry, you can't do that on the top. You also have to do this on the bottom, if you guys recall, because that's how you get your common denominator. I don't want you to like, I was doing my math really quickly in my head, so I wasn't doing it like mathematically correct because I just wanted to like verify in my brain that it was working. So I didn't show my work when I was mentally doing it. All right, so you'd multiply on the top and the bottom, right? So when you do that, you're going to get a 2 sine of x cosine squared of x. And then this is going to be a minus. Actually, let's just put them all in the same because they're all going to have the same denominator. So now we can do a minus a 2 cosine squared of x sine of x. Now again, you also have to distribute this negative plus a sine of x. That's a lot. And this is all over my common denominator of cosine of x sine of x. No, I'm sorry, cosine of x times sine of x. All right, cool. And this is still equal to secant of x. Okay, awesome. Now, a couple things I noticed is these are the same quantities, right? Subtracted. So those are just going to subtract to 0. And now I'm just going to be left with a sine of x over a cosine of x times sine of x. Well, guess what? Those divide out. So we're left with a 1 over cosine of x is equal to a secant of x. And guess what? Voila, we're good. So very fun problem. Never worked on that. That was awesome. Krishna. Well, thank you very much. Taking it 2 weeks. You know what? I think I'll have to go ahead and maybe work on some of the SAT, type questions. That's one of the things I want to be doing. I have a couple like short form videos, if you guys have noticed, that I kind of posted over the weekend, that I'm just kind of testing out. And that's something I'm looking forward to maybe expanding. So maybe that's also something I will bring into as well for the on my short form content for the SAT. And the boss, no, submitting questions on this live stream, these are all pre-submitted. But I will take maybe some questions for a little bit, maybe kind of see from there. But if you guys do submit questions on the Google form, then I'll most likely not going to review them till tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, I'm not going to review them till next week. So if you do have a question, feel free to go there. That's going to be your best. But you could also submit it on Discord, which is the link is up there as well. All right, the last question that's least pre-submitted is a calculus question. Looks for just finding the first derivative of our given function. So I don't really handle a lot of the calculus just because it's been a while since I taught and took calculus. So I like to kind of be fresh in the stuff as I'm working through it. And this question, but this one seems pretty straightforward, at least from my basics. So I'll just kind of go from there. All right, so if we're going to find this, we have a couple things. We have looks like the power rule and the chain rule that we're going to be working on. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to rewrite the graph. I'm going to rewrite the graph using a negative exponent. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it up to the numerator as a negative exponent. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and use the power rule. So to bring the power rule, I'm going to take the power, bring it down. So that's going to give me negative 32 multiplied by my coefficient here. And then I'm going to have, that's going to be of my original function. Okay. And then you need to subtract 1 from your power. So that's going to give me a negative 9. However, this base of my power is actually another function. So therefore, I'm going to need to use the chain rule here. And I need to multiply this by the derivative of this function, which is going to be a 3x squared. Okay. So now I can multiply 3 times negative 32, which is going to be a negative 96. I can rewrite this as a positive exponent. So x cubed plus 4 to the 9th, and then I'll leave an x squared up top. Or you can leave it like that as well. You know, maybe just multiply the 3 and the negative 32. But yeah, it's an important thing to understand using the power rule and chain rule, because this function, you can find that derivative in beneath there. So that is it for you guys. I'm kind of tired, so I'm not sure how many questions. I'm not sure how many questions I'll be able to get to, but if you have any kind of questions, even math related or non math related, feel free to go ahead and add them in there. I'll be more than happy to do that. All right. Yes, I also do have the, what is that? Yeah, I do also the Discord share, the bot. It's pretty responsive. I'm not sure if somebody was saying, but yeah, the Discord also have my videos from on there as well. Actually, I was wondering about that. Works on those old Discord. Yeah, because I've been updating a little bit more from there. Let's go and see question. Well, hey, Math Legend, good to have you. Maxim, how are you? Good to have you on. Blonde saying, I have no idea how it's possible for you to just simply understand all this information. I can barely remember everything within 3 weeks for my test. It's simply amazing how your brain works. Well, Blonde Ops, that is a very, very interesting statement. Not a very interesting statement. No, that's not the good word. That's a very relatable statement. I remember when I was a student watching my teachers do things, and I'm like, God, how is it like seem so easy to them to do some of these things? Like how can they like understand or know all of this stuff like so well? And I think that's something also to like, you know, kind of remember, like put things in perspective. Like a lot of what I have done over the last 14 years as a teacher has been doing the same math problems, types of problems, like over and over and over and over. Like even think about what I do on a Sunday night, right? At 9 o'clock, I'm doing math problems over and over, and not over and over, but I'm usually doing like 10 to 20. And that's why I did like my math challenge, you know, because I get a lot of benefit from doing a lot of math problems. Like one of the things that's made me even more of a better math student is like being a teacher, right? Because obviously when you're doing math problems, you're explaining it to people, you get better at it. You get better at your own understanding of the content and how things relate to each other. So it's not something how you relate like your brain, you know, how you can like, don't feel bad about yourself that you can barely remember anything. Like, of course you're not. You can't compare you to me. And of course there's people that are much smarter than me and much easier at math. But I think it's very important to kind of like understand I have a lot of practice. a lot of practice. I do a lot of math problems, and just even think like the math problems I do in class, like then think about when I create a test, I do the test, right? I'm grading I'm creating like worksheets and answers and homework and stuff. Like I do a lot of math over and over and over again. And that's actually one of the cool things I like about the reasons why these live streams are nice is because I get math like kind of all over the place. So it just kind of helps me keep things fresh. One of the hard things, the reasons why I don't do a lot of calculus right now, like on these live streams or probability or sequences and series, is because I'm not freshly teaching those content. And so like, I'm just not as confident in my explanations, and it might take me a little bit longer. And I just don't want to go through the like math thought process of my brain to like go through them. So yeah, you're right. If you want to give me something that I'm like not as relevant in, like I'm not going to remember this stuff. Like I'm teaching geometry this year. I haven't taught geometry in over 10 years. Like I don't remember a lot of the stuff, right? Because of course you don't use it in real life. But yeah, I did, it's been like, I had to go back and relearn that. I had to go back and practice the problems, kind of look at these shortcuts and like how I understood the problem and how I could teach it. And so don't go hard on yourself. It's completely normal to be able to just get the practice. And, that's why, I thought that 30-day challenge, the reason why I promoted that for you guys was, that's what I wanted you guys to do is get that practice in for you guys on there. Is there a thing called the absolute value system? Yes, there is. What grade or math level do you teach? So this year I am teaching, I tell you, I'm really tired. This year I'm teaching Algebra 2 honors, geometry, and pre-calculus. But I basically taught everything in high school. Like I also taught many years for Algebra 1, also taught calculus. And yeah, that's basically, and then besides stats, that's the only one I haven't really covered in my school. Is for use of for integrals, I do believe you'd have to go and check out my playlist on calculus. So if you go to my channel and go to the playlist tab, you can look at the calculus and go and check out what I have for integrals. I'm pretty sure I do have some use of for integrals, plenty of videos. I have a lot of videos. So hopefully I think some of those should be on there. For a typical 4-year university, where's your school? I would say probably at the Algebra 2 and like pre-calculus level, like somewhere in between there. I think that's a good place to kind of strive for. Obviously, if you're going into a more math field, it's preferred to have more math background. But, I tell people all the time, like I have kids that like freak out. They're like, I'm not good at math. I'm like, I got a D in high school in math. So don't feel bad. Like I went to college and they were not impressed with my resume. They're like, you want to become a math teacher? You have a D, it was my senior year of high school. I had a D in pre-calculus and I wanted to become a math teacher. And so, yeah, they were not impressed with me. So, don't feel bad. I mean, I think anywhere between an Algebra 2 and a pre-calculus background is good to kind of enter into university. But yeah, then you got to get ready to put in your work. If you didn't put in the work or you had some struggles in high school, like that's fine, right? It's part of the learning process. Just understand that like you got to work harder and once you get to the next level, and you got to pick up those pieces that you missed. I worked really hard in college to catch up to students to earn my math degree, and so that's one of those things that's, I'm proud of, is because it was tough. It was really tough. And a lot of people didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I wouldn't think somebody, you got a D in high school, pre-calculus. Okay. Like, math might not be your forte, but I got an A in pre-calculus in college, so I recovered. All right. Now you guys always like getting extra questions, or just put in the thing. All right. I'm in geometry. I take Algebra 2 honors and pre-calculus my sophomore year. So I'm in geometry, and I'm going to take Algebra 2 and pre-calculus my sophomore year. So yeah, well, that's a lot of math for your sophomore year. So hopefully maybe you can space it out. But yeah, I am looking forward to kind of going back into the calculus curriculum as well and kind of reviewing from that. Pre-calc is just reviewing polynomials and trig. Yeah, that's a lot. I'm not sure. Yeah, reviewing polynomials. We do a lot of polynomials and just general functions. Rational functions is a lot as well. Rational functions, logarithms, exponential should be important things. And then also introducing a lot of topics for calculus. I have a test tomorrow on graphing reciprocal functions. Just use transformations. It's just wow, I'm super lost. Well, I'm not sure how hard of a reciprocals you're getting at. But like if I said, graph 1 over x minus 2, and I said graph 1 x minus 2 squared, like how would you graph these two? Well, the main thing is you got to know the parent function, right? And then you got to know what the transformations are. So both of these are shift right 2, right? So in this case, here's that parabola, right? And then here is my reciprocal parabola. Looks something like that, right? So if I wanted to shift this right 2, all I'm going to do is go, 2 units to the right. Here, graph doesn't look the same. Here, I'm going to do the same thing. Now remember, this has a vertical asymptote here. So I'm just going to go right 2, change my new vertical asymptote, and then go from there. And then that's basically what you would do for those transformations. Obviously, this is a very basic, straightforward example. I'm not sure you might have some difficult ones, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of might be something helpful for you in an exam. Wish you the best of luck. What are the math classes in order for most engineering majors? I do not know. I thought of becoming engineering, but I didn't make it. My sister became an engineer, but I like doing math. I didn't like doing math that much because I think I maybe looked at like the courses that I need to do for becoming an engineer. I was like, okay, that's a lot of math. But it's the math I don't really like is the applications, which is people always like look at me. They're like, what? Like you don't like how? No, I'm like I like the pure math. I like the that abstract part of the math, not so much as the application part. All right. Wow, well done, sir. Thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. Cool. How difficult is pre-calculus, Christian? It all depends on how you're coming in for the year. So I will be coming up with some things for you guys to help prepared for pre-calculus for those of you that are taking it. But I know right now, guys, there are some exams coming up. I got to go and get myself prepped for my students and my exams. So I'm going to sign off here tonight, but I will be back here, guys, next Sunday night and for another live stream. I look forward to seeing you guys there. Hope you guys have a great week and night. Cheers. Ba-boom.